Welcome to the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, and capital raisers in the world to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer yourself, your life, your marriage, and use real estate as your wealth creation vehicle so that you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and contribution. If what you're after is having it all, if what you desire is becoming the best version you can be across all areas, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, sentimentally, and financially, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best of the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, knowledge, experience, and skills so that you can go out and crush it financially and across all areas of your life. Grab pencil and paper, sit back, enjoy, and you are welcome to the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast. Hello, Modern Kings and Queens. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we interview the best real estate investors, capital raisers, and real estate entrepreneurs in the world to provide you with the tool sets, mindsets, and skill sets for you to conquer yourself, your life, your marriage, and use real estate as your wealth creation vehicle to achieve financial freedom. I'm super excited today because I have an incredible guest with me today. He is a fellow capital raiser, podcaster. His podcast and himself is one of the inspirations that inspired my podcast and that gave me the idea to do what I'm doing today. So I'm super excited to get to talk to this gentleman today. But before I introduce him to you, though, I just want to ask all of you listening for a favor. I want to ask you that if you get something out of this interview, if you get some type of value, an insight, a skill, if you get a mindset shift, if you get some motivation or maybe some inspiration to go out and take some action and keep on moving forward towards your goals, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone who you know might be interested in capital raising, in real estate investing. Send it to someone who you think this might impact. Help us share a message and help other people. And for all of you who share, I say thank you. And today I have Ruben Greth. He has Greth. That was right, yeah, Greth.
Yeah.
He has a popular podcast about raising money for multifamily syndication called The Capital Raiser Show, as you can see on his background, if you're watching on YouTube, where he learns from the best multifamily syndicators in the country. And in 2019, Ruben partnered with a local syndicator on the acquisition of 190 units and has since become a fund manager who is building $48 million worth of subdivisions in Louisiana and Alabama, and partnering with multiple select syndicators, bringing equity, advisory, and investments management. He primarily uses Reg D 506C exceptions for accredited investors only in his deals. He's partnered in $5 million of capital raising partnerships. He's got his start by bringing joint ventures, and he basically, when it comes to capital raising, syndicating, podcasting, and real estate investing, this is the guy that you want to listen to, especially to his podcast. So, Ruben, thank you very much for being here, man. I really appreciate you, and you're welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. That's a very nice introduction. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here, man. Really excited for this.
Thanks, man. So, the first thing that I do with my guest, Ruben, is I ask them to walk us through their real estate investing journey or capital raising journey in 75 seconds or less.
Okay, cool. So my dad was a real estate investor. He planted the seed in me when I was very young. He died relatively when I was 7, but that always stayed with me. So once I graduated college, got into mortgages, that didn't help me learn about real estate. But from there, I was kind of a marketing type of person. So I found a local person that was buying a lot of fourplexes. I raised capital for him. We did about 22 units here in Phoenix. I left the partnership from him, went back to corporate America, and then eventually wanted to get back into real estate. So I teamed up with a local syndication company, which was raising capital for heavy lift apartment complexes down in Tucson, raised about $1 million for those guys. And in the process, launched my capital raiser show so that I could learn about capital raising. And from there, left so that I could launch my own fund when I found my existing partner, Andy McMullen at Legacy Acquisitions. And we've been raising capital for a couple other multifamily groups. And then most recently, our core business model has been very focused on building subdivisions and syndicating subdivisions in Louisiana and in Alabama, where we currently have 3 projects, 475 total houses that we are building. And we're really excited about the next 7 to 10 years where, we're hoping to scale to about 10,000 houses that we build. I don't even know how many subdivisions that would be, but let's just say probably about 20 or 30 subdivisions. And it's exciting times, man.
It is exciting times, man. I'm super excited. I'm partnering in a real estate development firm. And then I got the opportunity to partner with them through networking, right? Through like one connection. It completely changed my life. And the funny thing is, man, that I don't know anything about real estate developing, right? So I'm excited to ask you some stuff about that because I don't know anything about it. What I do know about is networking and raising capital, right? So
that's all you need to know.
Exactly, right?
You need to know.
But one thing that does inspire me, man, is that I told you before the recording that my purpose is to build modern kings and queens, right? It's men who want to have it all and achieve true freedom. Well, I'm inspired by developing, because I'm going to develop properties that inspire people to develop themselves, which is pretty cool, like a pretty cool like mission statement to have, right? I think, and I just came, I was meditating and boom, it like popped into my head. So I'm excited to ask you about some real estate development. But how long have you been capital raising, man? How long have you been raising capital?
Yeah, so from 09 to 11, I raised around 625,000 of JV capital to buy fourplexes. At the end of 11, I sold all my properties and split with my partner. So I had those about 2 years worth of experience. And then when I came back in 2018 and partnered with my syndication partner, the first one, I raised about $1 million. So from 2018 to 23 or maybe 2019, yeah, because I launched the show August of 2019 until right now, I've raised an additional about $2 million. So altogether, maybe you're in the $5 million range or so. Between me and my company, and my company has raised way more capital than I have. And so I would say probably about 5 years or so. I don't know. My math is pretty poor when it comes to calculating, but I know that I came back to syndication and had to relearn how to raise capital because I was doing it from limited partners back in 2019. And it probably took me about a year to start getting some co-GPs and some other folks to come in with that $1 million for those Tucson syndications.
So you were doing it with limited partners. Did you change anything? Did you stop doing it with limited partners?
Well, so raising capital, there's a lot of ways to do it and a lot of sources of capital. In my early days when we were taking down fourplexes, what we would do is find a JV partner that would bring all of the money. We would pay cash for a fourplex or a 12plex. And then we would mutually own it as a joint venture agreement. That was a very different way of raising capital. I call it raising capital. Some people call it just partnerships. But for me, because I had none of my own money in the deal, I was still taking down deals with other people's capital. So I could consider that capital raising. When I got into syndication, the idea was very different because you weren't taking on JV partners as much as raising from people that were just bringing capital and taking a completely passive position in the deal. So the syndication is structured in such a way where there's a general partner, also known as an operator or a sponsor. They run and manage and find and acquire the deal, and then they need capital to fund the deal. So they get that from debt, and they also get it from what's referred to as equity. And the equity consists of limited partners or people that bring in 50 to 150 or $250,000 checks or sometimes more. And then you have to communicate with them because they're completely hands off at a completely different level than you would with somebody who's partnered with you on the active side, somebody that's actively operating and managing the deal. So that whole...
Hello, modern kings and queens. I'm sorry for the interruption. I know you're enjoying the episode, but I have something super important that you must listen to. If you've been following this podcast for a while now, it's because of one of two reasons. Number one, you aspire to have it all, to unlock your potential across all areas of your life and achieve true freedom physically, emotionally, spiritually, sentimentally, and of course, financially. And or number two, you're a real estate investor or an aspiring real estate investor who has chosen to use real estate as your wealth creation vehicle to achieve financial freedom. My mission as part of the Modern Kings and Queens movement is to help as many people as I can achieve financial freedom using the vehicle of real estate. And I believe that networking can be an incredibly powerful tool to help you unlock your potential across all areas, but more importantly, financially, and more specifically in real estate. I believe that in real estate, your net worth is your network. This is why I created the 4-step capital raising networking system to help real estate investors propel their growth by using a reliable system that will consistently help them connect with their ideal investors, build trust, add value, get their investors to promote them and put them in front of more investors, and raise more capital faster and in a much more effortless way so that they can become successful, not only financially, but across all areas of their life. If this is something that you want, and this is something that you're interested in, click the link below to gain access to a training that will explain the 4 steps to building a high leverage network that you can use to raise millions of dollars in capital, propel your growth in real estate, and achieve financial freedom in a much more effortless way so that you can have more time and energy to pour into every single other area of your life so that you can become successful, not only financially, but across all areas of your life. In this training, you will learn 4 things. Number 1, aligned connections. I'll show you how to network effectively and how to make sure that your networking efforts work by leveraging a secret, little known concept called the cloak track. Number 2, networking tool. I'm gonna reveal to you a secret networking tool that the top 5% of successful real estate investors use to become successful. And I'm gonna show you how you can use it too to become successful and get out of that 95% of real estate investors that don't really make it. 3, high status communication. In order for someone to invest in you, they have to feel like they know you, like you, and trust you. A lot of people can communicate, but very few can connect. High status communication will allow you to build trust and add value in a way that will make people feel like they know you, like you, and trust you for years in a time span of 30 minutes. And lastly, the 4th thing is the attention multiplication machine. The world doesn't run on oil anymore. It runs on attention. And this last thing, the attention multiplication machine, will show you how to get wealthy investors to promote you and put you in front of more wealthy investors so that you can raise more capital faster and in a much more effortless way. So if this is something that interests you, click the link below to go watch the training. Make sure you stay all the way to the end. If you find value and you want to book a call to talk about how you can get this completely offhand system, completely done for you system, implemented for you in the next 5 days. So click the link below. I'll see you on the other side. And I hope you enjoyed the rest of your episode. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Creation of a communication infrastructure was new to me. The whole marketing for long-term smaller investors was very different. And, when I came on board, the team was like, hey, where's the capital? You said that you're going to raise the capital. Come on board. And I'm like trying to learn how to do this. And I'm understanding very quickly that this way of creating a database of $50,000 investors and creating a brand that people are attracted to so that they know, like, and trust you takes a long period of time. So my solution to that, because we didn't have a lot of time, we had deals that were going to close in 90 days, was I'll go raise from people that already have those databases established, what I refer to as a co-GP or a co-sponsor, or somebody that brings their database of limited partner, $50,000 retail investors, and becomes part owner of your company, an officer of your LLC, or side by side does a JV agreement with you. You share the profits with that operator who has ongoing duties to stay legally compliant. Because at this point, you're dealing with securities, right? Raising from joint ventures, there's no securities involved. You're just a partnership. But when you're taking money from people who don't have any active role in the deal, that is called a passive investor. And those guys are essentially buying a share of your company. And once they start buying shares of your company, that becomes a security. So you have to be very careful and then start following a lot of regulations and SEC compliances. And it's a whole different can of worms that you've opened in terms of the ability and capacity to raise capital from people, because now you are being managed the same way a stock company is, like a Coca-Cola. So the way that real estate investors kind of deal with this is they file an exemption with a securities attorney so that they can not be treated like a typical stock company, but treated more like a real estate investment firm. And they file exemptions so that they can raise capital from limited partners that essentially buy a share of your company, but are completely hands off. And that's the way that they do it legally. So these are some of the things that I learned in the first year or so of the differences of the ways that I was raising capital in the beginning versus what I was now taking on as my new role in terms of being involved in multifamily deals.
Well, so man, can you explain to me a little bit more? Because it was clear, right? But it could have you throw you threw some words in there that could have, that they could sound confusing to some people.
Absolutely.
But how do you shit, my Mexican,
No,
I'm
it's
not able to
cool.
speak. All
Let me
right.
explain. Here's let me break it down for if there's any audience members that have never heard of a syndication, let me explain what it is. Essentially, what a syndication is when you get a group of people together that have one common goal. And typically there's one guy that manages or one group of people that manages and operates the deal and finds the deal. And then there's another group that typically provides all of the capital to fund the deal. And those two guys or groups come together and they basically create a union so they can take down large scale multifamily deals. Because a lot of people think that I could never be involved in a large scale, $5 million or $20 million multifamily because I don't know anybody that has ever done it in my family, and it's a limiting belief. But these guys that are taking down these large scale multifamily properties, they're just like people that you went to high school with. They're mortal human beings that have just developed specific skills, like how to manage and operate and property manage or asset manage or manage construction people or people that are helping with rehabilitation or building or developing, and then take all these people that have different roles and create an organization that takes down these massive projects. And they do it by staying in their own lane, right? Like somebody might be really good at marketing and another person branding and another person in property management, another guy that's really good at being a general contractor, another guy that's really good at finding the deals, and another guy that's really good at underwriting the deals. And then you got all these other guys that are like thinking, well, I have money to invest, but I don't know, and I don't want to deal with toilets, tenants, termites. So they have the capital, but they don't want to be active in the deal, right? Because they don't want to be getting calls from they don't want to be landlords and getting calls from people that have a broken toilet at 2 a.m. And that's not a fun lifestyle for a lot of people. So the operators handle all the property management and everything else that has to do with the acquisition of the deal and making it more profitable. And the limited partners, which are the capital source, they get a free, basically a free ride in terms of not having to do any duties in the deal. But of course, it's not exactly free because they brought their hard worked for capital and their money, then they're parts of their nest egg that they've been working their whole life for to build. And it requires a great deal of confidence from the operator and a track record. And then from the limited partner, a great deal of courage to invest your hard-earned money with somebody that's going to basically become a steward of your money for the next 3 to 5 years or however long that deal is. So hopefully that kind of explains it a little bit more for the people that are listening.
It totally did, man. And you mentioned how you this is like a team sport. And I apologize. I don't know, like my tongue got twisted right now and I couldn't speak, but
it's all man. Good.
So it's a team sport. You need people who are good at operating. You need people who are going to be finding the deals. You need the people who are going to be underwriting, managing, capital raising. In your case, man, what are you good at?
So I'm good at building relationships, and I'm also good at national exposure, right? Getting in front of people, building funnels and attracting people to us. So once I've established my show that's got a great reach, now I can connect with other capital raisers and co-GPs and potential part owner operators of our company, and then build our development from that perspective. I also handle marketing, but for the most part, what I'm really focused on is just trying to understand enough about the development process and the syndication process, where I create relationships with people that begin to know, like, and trust me. And at some point, they either bring their databases of investors, or from people that actually have money, they come and partner with us in that capacity as a limited partner into our deals. So I would say my strength is networking, marketing, relationship building, and making friends. And the biggest part of this business has to do with all of those things. And I chose specifically capital raising because I understood one thing: the finding and acquiring of capital and the finding and acquiring of real estate deals are two almost distinct businesses. And if I could master the capital raising part, my services and the demand for my services would be needed and in demand for the rest of my life. So that's why I've dedicated the last 4 years to mastering this and interviewing successful syndicators and capital raisers and fund managers and syndication attorneys so that they can help me understand all of the laws, how to raise capital, the different strategies from raising capital, the sources of capital, which include LPs, co-partners, institutions, family offices, fund of funds. They come from all these different sources, including quasi-institutional, like people that run insurance companies that want to invest their investor, when they sell insurance policies, they have to take that money and reinvest it, and they buy apartment complexes with people too. So there's all these sources of capital and ways to get it. And even, you can raise from funds, debt funds, people that help you with the debt side of the deal and the equity, or handle all of it for you. And there's an entire, what we call a capital stack, that says, hey, who gets paid first? And typically it's the lender, just like on your home, right? And there's a second mortgage, or a mezzanine debt in our case, or a preferred equity partner. Those guys get paid in order, and typically the last guys get paid are the owner operators, the guys that are managing and finding the deals. And we are owner operators, so we're the last guys to get paid. After you've gotten your money, that's when we'll get our money.
Man, so it's exciting. It sounds like your last 4 years have been exciting. You've just been trying to hunt down the best of the
crazy
best.
ride. It's been a crazy ride. And something that you mentioned earlier is like the whole understanding development is a crazy process too, because I had never developed a house or understood too much about construction. So for me to try and understand what are the phases of development, how do we put a house together, who are the teams that put it together, everything from how thick is the insulation to what's going on the outside. Oh, we're putting cement board on there. How do we determine that? How do we find and select the market? How do we do all of these things? How do we deal with the city? How do we deal with ordinances and zoning and bureaucracy and red tape? And getting, how do we put a piece of land under contract with an option so that we don't even have to purchase it if we find that it can't do the things that we want it to? Right. So we're not stuck with a piece of land. We put an option to purchase once the engineering is complete. All of these things were just completely Chinese to me in the beginning. But as you hang out with other people that are doing what you want to do, you start to pick up. And it's been for me a pretty crazy roller coaster ride. And I think it's one that a lot of people that want to get into commercial real estate, either development or syndication, they have to go through. So a lot of people say, hey, it takes about a year of studying it to start kind of getting a grasp on it. And one of the fastest ways that you can do that, if you have not hired a mentor, is to become an apprentice for a company, or like you're doing, Alex, is starting a podcast and just interviewing people, because they'll give you 45 minutes of your time where you can ask them anything and everything that you want.
That's crazy, right?
Right. And that's one of the most fantastic aspects of podcasting. And what I've learned and developed over my time is that actually helps you build relationships with people too. Yeah. Because it's one thing to get somebody on a phone call, but it's another thing to create content with them and interview them and ask them questions and do that. It makes your bond a little bit deeper with the people that you actually interview you. And if you're interviewing a lot of people, now you're creating a lot of relationships, and the more relationships you create, obviously the better it's going to be for your business.
You want to know how many podcasts I'm doing per week, man?
Let me know. Damn, that's a lot.
12.
How many are you releasing per week?
So I'm releasing about three per week, right? But I have an incredible team. We're very fast, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm loving it. And I built, well, I'm building, because I don't think it's something that you just end. all that infrastructure, like the marketing infrastructure and communication and making sure that every single person that I interview and connect with goes to like a CRM that I can keep track of and stuff, right?
There is
Um,
an entire universe that gets exposed, right? So marketing, branding, avatar creation, CRMs, investor portals, technology, communication infrastructure. You think that raising capital is just like, hey, I'll go talk to a couple of people and then the capital comes in. It's so much more than that, guys. It's like a full-time job, like that can be divided into multiple people, where there's an investor relations guy and somebody that helps you walk through the portal, and another person that does the marketing, and another person that manages the active campaign, and then there's got to be somebody that's going to conferences and networking too, right? So there's all these things that if you try and do by yourself, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, man, it can be overwhelming. It can be super overwhelming.
yeah, yeah. So man, so Ruben, you have all of this experience, all of this knowledge, all of this connections in your network and stuff. Have you started or thought about teaching other people how to raise capital, how to get all the systems and infrastructure in place and build a network and all of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had a lot of demand from people say, hey, can you mentor me on the capital raising side? And I haven't had to this point the systems, the modules, the things that you need to watch, the education package to give to somebody, other than, hey, I can spend 30 minutes and tell you what I've learned, but I don't have a systematic process for you to follow. That's here's step one, here's step two, here's step three. But I'm actually in process of working on a capital raiser coaching program with my friend Vinky Lumba that should be launched within the next couple of months. And there's going to be a collaboration with Richard Wilson of the family offices there, because he's got his capital raising coaching conferences, but he's not a coach. So he won't do one-on-one or group coaching with anybody. He just runs these conferences. So between giving people the coaching, giving them the tools, giving them access to all these affiliate technology programs that can help them with automations and campaigns and website development, and the one-on-one coaching and accountability, and the conferences that was going to provide networking connections, we're going to do a full encompassing capital raiser coaching program that's going to be launched in the next couple of months. So we're really excited about that.
Cool. That sounds exciting, man. I'll be on the lookout for that. I'll be on the lookout for that coaching program and see if there's any way that we could collaborate or anything. But that sounds exciting. So man, so talking about raising capital, you mentioned something right now, right, about having an investor avatar. So talk to me about that. Like, what is an investor avatar, and why is it
So
important?
what a lot of people think of when they're starting a capital raising business in conjunction with a multifamily syndication business or as a portion of that business is, I want to get access to money, right? So they will take money from anywhere, from doctors, from engineers, from physicians, or high tech employees, or whatever, and their
Yeah,
messaging doesn't resonate with any of them. So
exactly.
what I've been told from my mentors is, if you can select a specific kind of branding that you want to target one type of person that's got some specific pain points, that's looking to accomplish specific things, and then you speak to that person through your messaging, through your branding, so that they can resonate with the message. Like whether that's a tech employee in San Diego that's got 3 kids, that wants to and knows and has fear of missing out on real estate opportunities, but doesn't really have the time because they want to spend with their kids and they have the golden handcuffs. This is kind of a description of our avatar, right? And we can create messaging, to target that person. And then we know exactly where to find that person and give them our investor communication and nurture and educate them on how we can solve their problems. Then other people who are not necessarily your avatar can resonate with your brand and your messaging, even if they are not your avatar. So even though you think that you might be excluding people by creating a brand targeted for, like, let's say women investors that live in San Francisco or something like that, that message might seem so friendly and be oriented to create generational wealth and financial freedom and retire early and that kind of a message, that they
It's
will
so
resonate
general.
with it and come to it, right? Like it may
Yeah.
be a dentist that lives on the other side of the country, but they like your friendly brand and they know that you're creating generational wealth and that you're experienced and you have a track record, and they'll resonate with your message at a
Yeah.
much higher level than if you're just have some, hey, we make money for people. Like, well, everybody makes money for people, right? Isn't that
Exactly. It doesn't make them
so?
move, right? And take action.
Yeah, so people resonate with a message that's targeted to a specific avatar, and that's one of the reasons it's so important to create one.
So, man, this is such an important lesson because, I've read a ton of books about marketing, taken courses and coaching programs and stuff. And I've always known the information, right? Niche, message, offer. You got to know who your ideal client's avatar is. You got to have a message that resonates with them and give them a compelling offer. I've always known that intellectually, but I recently, just a couple of months ago, less than a year ago, was able to internalize that lesson emotionally, man. And I finally was able to actually understand it. And it's such an important lesson because before, right, like a year ago, I was working so hard, man, but like really, really hard to get, a couple of clients. And that was because I was like trying to serve everyone, right? And what made the shift, and I'm just super excited about this lesson because like I struggled so much, I worked so hard for mediocre results. And now that I'm implementing this lesson, everything is flowing a lot more smoother. So the way that I was able to realize this lesson, the way that I was able to actually understand what marketing was, is because I threw an event, like a speaking event, for 100 people. My local city, I put billboards, like my billboards, my face was all over the city and everything, and it was for 100 people, right? We were gonna give dinner. We were gonna give breakfast and lunch, and then have a dinner party, right? And 100 people, and like 15 showed up, man. It was a total disaster. And then all of those 15 people, one was a hot dog stand guy, the other one sold like clothes on a I don't know. The other one was like a real estate agent. The other one was like a hair, right? She cut hair, and like just a bunch of different people from a bunch of different industries, man. And the reason was because my billboards had reach more, make millions, reach more people. It sounds cool, right? Yeah, I wanna reach more people with my product and service, and I wanna make millions. And it was for entrepreneurs, professionals, and fucking everyone, man. Right? And then a lot of people, right? I went to the mall, I went to the movies, I went to eat, and then a lot of people would stop me and say, "Hey, I saw you on the billboard. I saw you. You're the guy from the billboard." And then they were, "Yeah, yeah." And then they were like, "Oh, I saw it. It looked super cool. It looked super interesting, but I didn't scan the QR code, right?" And I got that comment like 50 times, man. So like people looked at my billboard, right? They saw it. It looked cool, but the message didn't make them move, right? And I finally understood that, man. I was trying to talk to everyone, and nobody was resonating with my um with my message. And it's been such a blessing. Like that failure, I did 2 events and both of them failed until I got it, man. And it's been such a blessing. I had to go through that in order for me to understand. But I finally understood it, man, and it's been so great, right? And the same thing applies for business, and the same thing applies if you're trying to raise capital, right? If you have a specific investor avatar that you can talk to, and and you have a message that resonates with them, you'll be able to make them move and take action instead of you trying to help the entire world create wealth.
That's so true, man. We can go crazy into all kinds of topics. Like, I'm writing a book right now about capital raising. And, I
Cool.
always ask people on my show, I'm like, how much of your success is attributed to mindset? I know you're a big mindset guy too. So hopefully you can appreciate this. And everybody says like 80, 95, some people say 100%. But when you talk about coaching, there's not a lot of mindset coaching that's associated. Yes, there's strategies and like gurus that teach underwriting and capital raising and this and that. But if you don't have your mind right, that's the first place where you need to start. So like I was just listening to Brad Sumrock, and he likes to says, we don't start with the how. Like, how are we going to acquire this multifamily property? We start with the why. Because if we can get the compelling reasons, and this is the same thing for limiting partners. If we can find out what it is that they're trying to accomplish, then we can solve their goals. Or for a capital raising coaching student, why is it? What is the coaching going to give them? Are they going to get something? What is it that they're going to get from being able to raise capital? And what's that going to do to change their life and their bloodline and their ability to be attracted and seeked out by other syndicators? If you can find out what that is and what their pain is, and then solve that through your problems, that is such a huge part. But that big part of it is mindset. And we could go over numerous topics that I'm going to be writing in my book, like branding, keeping people warm between deals, your investors, fund creation and fund structures. We mentioned avatars, authority platforms like the one that you have, omnipresent and social media marketing, emotional versus logic-based capital raising, story brand selling, website creation, creating lead magnets, creating traffic, staying in your lane. Are you doing too much? Are you trying to control the entire project, or are you just focused on the capital and marketing or one specific thing? Because if you're trying to do everything, you're not going to have success because it's too much and you don't have the bandwidth to be the one person does everything. You need teams, right? So staying in your lane, raising from JVs for syndications versus LPs or co-GPs or institutions or prep equity or creative finance, marketing automations, drip campaigns, newsletters, investor retention, is like, how about just keeping your existing investors as a source of capital and asking them for referrals, right? So the list just goes on and on, everything from vetting sponsors to negotiating your share of the co-GP and technology platforms, legalities, finding investors, profiling investors, speaking to them. But it's a huge world, man, and it requires a lot of time. So
when is this book going to come out?
This is probably we're finishing up the rough physical written copy, and then we're probably going to take it to Upwork or some editor that can make it cohesive and sound coherent, and then we should have it out probably within a few months. I would say maybe by the end of 2023, if not sooner.
Nice.
That's our goal.
Damn, man, you're moving. It sounds exciting, man. You are going to, in the next couple of months, launch a coaching program that encompasses everything that has to do with capital raising, right? All of your 4 years of experience, all of your 4 years of experience, and all of the years of experience of the person that you're partnering with, a book with all the things that you mentioned, right? And more. So that's great, man. So where would be the best place to get in touch with? Like, if we want to get in touch with you, where would be the best place to do that?
YouTube, so if they just want to hang out and kind of talk shop, LinkedIn is a great place. They can find me on all the major social medias other than TikTok. I'm also not on Twitter, but Instagram at Capital Raiser or my Facebook. If they're interested in hearing my podcast, capitalraisershow.com, or on any major platform. And if they're interested in partnering with us on deals as a co-GP or a limited partner, even on the build to rent subdivisions, they can check out my company at legacyacquisitions.com.
Cool, man. So I have a couple of selfish questions that I want to ask you. Right. So you just mentioned LP or co-GP, right? So you mentioned that one of the things that you did to raise capital faster was that instead of going to, people, you went to people who had the people.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me a little bit more?
Well, yeah. If you want to move quickly, because you can't raise capital from people that you haven't spoken to already. My experience, especially if people are giving a $50,000 nest egg of their hard-earned money, is this a very long sales cycle for people to know, like, and trust you and understand your business model and how they're going to make money and feel comfortable enough that you're going to be a good steward of their money to actually part with. It's like the craziest form of sales in existence, right? You're asking somebody to part with their life savings or a portion of their life savings. There's no crazier sales process than that, right? But so how do you do that quickly? You can tap other people's networks or their capital raising platforms, right? Because there's some people like broker dealers that are already associated with registered investment advisors, or that connect deals, sponsors, and limited partners or high net worth individuals together. There's some stuff like that exists. But one of the solutions that I discovered early on was, let me just go find somebody who's scaling, that's already been educating and nurturing their database. They may have, for example, come from a high paying salaried position in a bank or in technology, and they have all these other people that they work with that make $250,000 a year, that have massive tax headaches every year. And if they can solve that, and they've heard from somebody that can provide them a solution, but is not necessarily good at operating deals, you take that person that's already educated and nurtured an audience of high salaried employees, you bring them on board, you give them their GP card, you make them part owner of the company, you give them a portion of the deal, and then they bring their people, and that solves the capital needs for the general partnership very quickly if you can put that together. But you want to be doing this hopefully before the deal is already going, because if the deal is already going and you're trying to scramble for capital, I think at that point it's too late. It's too hard to get a limited partner or a co-GP or a capital raiser that is focused on that particular thing and can bring some other skill sets so they can stay legally compliant to come into your business. So you want to start, this is why exactly you want to start building relationships with people, and because these kind of opportunities present themselves. And if you don't have a relationship with these people at that point, once the deal is started, it's too late.
So you mean connecting with the capital raisers who already connected with a bunch of people who want to give their money?
Yeah, and an attorney would probably beat me up a little bit. They'd be like, hey, when you say capital raisers, it's got a negative connotation, because a lot of people think that capital raising means bringing money and doing nothing. And that's actually illegal in a security. In order for you to legally bring capital, you have to be an operator and have an ongoing duty. And that can mean all kinds of things, right? It could be like the ongoing website, communications infrastructure, investor relations, marketing manager, and overseer of numerous parts of your business, because all of these things that I have mentioned that could be potential chapter topics, dude, there's a lot of work. You're not just bringing some money and then taking a fee and leaving. You're participating in an ongoing establishment of a greater and greater database, both of co-GPs and LPs, and doing all of those different things, right? So yeah, what I would say is, you can actually find somebody who's already educated and nurture them, give them a piece of your deal, make them an ongoing manager of certain aspects of your company and that real estate deal that you have. And then that becomes legally compliant so that you can raise capital.
Cool. So man, you have a fund? You know, at the beginning you mentioned that you went and started your show, and then you partnered with someone, but then you left to start your own fund. So is that where you're right now?
I never launched that particular fund that I was going to do solo, which was very overwhelming. Instead, I partnered with somebody that had already done fund management and had run a few funds. So now, well, there's a couple of distinctions that we should say, right? Because anytime that you are syndicating a real estate deal, that's a source of crowdfunding, right? Because you're funding your real estate deal. So that's a fund. And then you can start a fund that either manages deals or that raises money and invests with other operators and their syndications. And that is referred to as a fund of funds, because you create a fund that has money and then you operate it like a security. And then that money that you've raised in that fund that you manage like a security, then invest in somebody else's syndication. And hopefully with the purpose of diversifying into multiple operators or multiple deals. Right. So from that perspective, I've been a fund manager since my first syndication, but actually owning a fund that invests into other people's deals, we've dabbled with some of that, is particular in the single purpose vehicle environment. And we also have a blind pool fund that we have not launched, because a lot of people are like, why would I put money into a blind pool? That's like giving up all my control into what I decide to invest in. So there's these unique structures in place that you can create where somebody can look at a deal through a deal by deal segregated fund, and we could go into another can of worms, right? Because I mentioned that capital raising is an entire universe. But yeah, so I am a fund manager. We do have an existing fund that's sitting on the sidelines. We will use that eventually to fund multiple build to rent subdivision developments. But when I left my previous company to go launch my fund, instead of launching that fund, I just went and partnered with somebody that had already done funds, which if you're going to get into this game, you can either try and take down a multifamily deal by yourself, or you can partner with somebody that's already done it. It's obvious that most people that have success partner with existing multifamily operators. And I would say the same thing for anybody that wants to launch a fund. Instead of launching your fund from scratch and trying to do everything that I was going to try and do, just partner with somebody who's already done funds. It's the same concept.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or if you want to develop properties, right, but you don't know anything about developing, right? Just partner with someone who has led development projects and knows everything about managing construction workers, engineers, architects, and all of that. So for sure. So man, I do end my interviews with a couple of questions, but before I ask them, I want to ask you one last selfish question, right?
Sure.
So I just became a real estate developer, right? And I was meditating, and boom, something like a line popped into my head, and I'm like, damn, like I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. Like my purpose is to build modern kings and queens. By focusing on that purpose, I've been just focusing on that purpose for the past 4 years, and I've just been having success, right? And now I'm just going with the flow, and I ended up in a place in which that aligns with everything that I've ever wanted for myself, which is developing, right? And then the line was, I, I develop properties that inspire people to develop themselves, right? And the vision was like on my website, I develop properties, and the property would be like like the baseball scorecards that like flip, they flip, right? Like one, and then they flip to two, and then they flip to three. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not really too into baseball cards or modern baseball cards, so I'm not sure about the flipping cards.
Well, it's just a thing that flips, right? So I develop properties, and then the property, that word would flip into apartments or commercial or residential or whatever. It would flip, right? That inspire people to develop themselves, and then themselves would be, would flip into physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sentimentally, right? And that was the vision that I got, and my ideal investor avatar would be people that resonate with that modern king message.
Yes.
So then the coaching, the free coaching that I want to get from you, man, is what do you think about that? What do you think about? So I'm thinking about, because I do have another podcast in which I've interviewed over 200 real estate modern kings, right, for my Modern Gentlemen's podcast. Yeah. So what do you think about that investor avatar? People that resonate with that, with modern king, with having it all, with becoming the best that you can be across all areas, and achieving and then achieving that financial freedom through investing into real estate passively. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So nobody's going to resonate with you all the time. So if you are already a spiritual being and that's part of the things that you resonate with and you seek, then a lot of times your avatar is a replica of yourself, right? So I didn't know when I started my show, which was about real estate and capital raising, that at some point we would get into quantum mechanics and spirituality, and I would ask people if they believe in miracles. But I found my voice, and not everybody's going to resonate with my spiritual message. And I'm not preaching anything, but I like to ask people, hey, does your spiritual philosophy have anything to do with your success in business? And depending on how they answer that is going to indicate to me whether or not I want to work with them. Because if they're completely not spiritual, that's kind of is a red flag for me in some perspectives. And when I'm even creating my avatar of the person that I want to serve in my capital raising coaching, I'm saying that these people are connected to a higher source, something that's bigger than themselves, that they believe in spiritual aspects, right? So I definitely am a big fan and proponent of, if you want to attract people that are on the same wavelength on them, then make the parts that you like about yourself that you want to attract from other people, write it down in your avatar creation. I think it's phenomenal that you're going to do that.
That's great, man. And you want to know what? That goes back to understanding marketing and your ideal client's avatar, right? And it's a mindset. It's abundance of mindset, because the reason why I was trying to target the entire world is because I was in scarcity, right? I thought that there wasn't enough. And the reason people don't fear, right? Fear, like niching down and focusing on one client's avatar is because of scarcity again, right? So, so the reason you want to make an ideal client's avatar is to you want to know who your ideal client's avatar is to know who your ideal client's avatar is. It's so simple.
And because you have greater clarity, right? So I just read a book called or I should say it's called Who the F Am I to Be a Coach, right? And in this book, the author is talking about, I want to help ladies who are 40 years old that are wanting to step into their power, that live in San Diego, that are moms, that can step into their greatness and that want to challenge themselves. And if you identify all of those little particular aspects versus, hey, I want to coach people. And then you tell people I want to coach people. You ask them, who do you know that I could potentially serve? And they're like, I don't know. But when you start saying, well, it's a woman, she lives in San Diego, she's got this specific problem, she wants to step into her greatness and has not yet, but she needs an accountability partner or somebody like that. And you start identifying all the people, they're like, oh, you know what? I know somebody like that. Let me refer them to you. And when it's a general message, they don't know who to refer to you because they can't think of the person, right? So that's another kind of big aha moment that I got from that book.
You want to be a lighthouse, not a tugboat. So, man, the first question that I want to ask you is, let's see, knowing what you know now, Ruben, what piece of advice would you give your younger self, maybe, I don't know, 4 years ago, or I don't know, at the beginning of your journey, that would help you have faster, easier, and smoother success?
Don't be afraid of partners. So my first partnership, it ended sour and I never wanted to have a partner again. But in order for me to scale, I had to embrace that multifamily, especially large scale multifamily, is a team sport, and I had to give into that. So the other thing too is I wish I would have told myself, buy more real estate and hold it versus just flip it and sell it for a short-term profit, because real estate, it goes up so much over time. So I would go back to the younger person that bought his first few properties and say, don't sell those. Don't sell them, because now they're worth like 10 times what they're worth back then when I bought them.
Huge lesson. The next question is, building relationships and networking is key to be successful in the real estate investing game, especially when it comes to capital raising, deal finding, and all of that. So what networking strategy or advice could you give, man?
Don't go to a networking event to sell something. Just go there to like be of value, to make friends and create relationships with no agenda. That would be the number one thing I would say.
Cool. Awesome. So let's see. The next question is, what is a false belief that you had, at the beginning, and that you see most beginner capital raisers or real estate investors have that holds them back?
Yeah. So me personally, and I think a lot of people suffer from this particular mindset too. They think, and I thought, that multifamily partners do not grow on trees. I had a scarcity mindset of like, I'll never find another multifamily partner that I can raise capital for again. And, that's actually why I went back to corporate America, is because I didn't think that I could do it myself. So the reality is now that I started my show, I've interviewed over 250 of the best multifamily syndicators that the planet has to offer. And I found, in fact, that multifamily partners do grow on trees. You just have to network and meet enough of them. And they may not live in the same, block as you, but they're out there. You can go on anybody's podcast. And what's funny is all these multifamily guys, they always give their contact information at the end of every show, or a way to get a hold of them. So these guys are actually in abundance. But the general public doesn't really believe that or know that, right? Because they're like, passive investing or investing into a private placement or commercial, that doesn't exist, right? I don't see commercial real estate fund managers hanging out on every street corner. Well, if you just open your eyes and know where to look, like on anybody's podcast where they've interviewed a bunch of them, that's how you get connected with them. And then you realize that, in fact, they are abundant. Just because you don't see them in broad daylight doesn't mean that they're not everywhere.
And the key is that not only are those type of multifamily syndicators are abundant, everything is
True.
right.
Good point.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's a huge mindset shift I've been working into, or no, not working into, but like realizing, right? Internalizing emotionally. So thanks, man. I've had a lot of fun.
Been a
And
blast.
if anyone else resonated with you out there, anyone else is excited for the coaching, right? That is going to cover everything that has to do with capital raising, your book. They just want to hang out and keep in touch. You already mentioned some stuff, but where would be like definitely the best place to contact you, man, or get a hold of you?
I like LinkedIn, dude. Just message me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook too, but not quite as much. And on Instagram, I'm a little bit slower to respond on those platforms. But the quickest place that I'll respond is probably on LinkedIn, or just go to my one of my websites and schedule a call with me. That would also work very quickly too.
Awesome. Well, Ruben, it's been a pleasure, man. It's been really fun. Thank you very much.
Bet,
And I'll see you later, man.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate you, and we are super grateful about being part of your journey of becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur and having it all. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will be impacted positively. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be across all areas. And if you thought this episode was really valuable, share it on your social media as a post or a story. We have a special gift for all of those who contribute to the Modern Kings and Queens movement. So for those of you who decided to share this episode and help us spread our message, send me a message letting me know on any social media platform at Alex Ramirez, the Modern King. I have a special surprise for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.